Stereo KDWB 702 with Ted O'Brien. Going to be clear to part of cloudy today and not quite so cold. High today about 15. Right now 11 below.
I have linked this video version of the image of wide scope to Ulmer's very early description of what he called VideoC, or video intelligence, as something enabled by the technological capabilities of video. Working out of Jack Goody, Ian Watt, Brian Street, and other literacy theorists of the 70s and 80s, Ulmer predicted that video intelligence would become a legitimate form of learning, and in contrast to analysis in literacy, invention would be the driving force behind VideoC. Ulmer writes, "Until now, we could not institutionalize invention in the way that we have institutionalized analysis because we simply lacked the prosthesis needed to democratize it. As a prosthesis for invention, video served as the medium within which invention could finally stand at the forefront of writing and pedagogy, something scholars in composition were also arguing for at the time. This move is quite stunning, as Ulmer envisioned a much larger cultural role for video, even though the only format available for widespread use at the time was VHS. Perhaps because of the technological limitations of producing analog video, Ulmer moved toward hypertext in his 1994 book Heretics, especially since HTML code is so accessible. With the arrival of online video, however, we can blend the vision of VideoC articulated in Ulmer's book Teletheory with the ease of linking, remixing, and repurposing that hypertext affords. Going back to Teletheory, we can see that Ulmer first articulated the idea of the image of wide scope there, which, not surprisingly, was first published in 1989. He writes, "Any one individual, as part of the oral life story, will possess a small set of images of wide scope, 4 or 5 at the most, that constitute that individual's personal cosmology, and to which he or she is committed by desire and value. If method is important to problem solving, the images of wide scope, with their emotional associations, are vital to the way the problem is represented in the first place. Such images organize the information into complex sets that direct the mapping or translation process of comprehension and learning, and finally, of invention." By drawing on Roland Barthes' notion of the punctum of recognition from Camera Lucida, Ulmer validates the emotional and bodily reactions we feel when looking at certain images or recalling certain events. To arrive at the wide image, Ulmer introduces the concept of the pop cycle as a heuristic for discovering chance occurrences happening across all of the discourses of any person's life, which hold great inventional potential. The discourses of the pop cycle include family, entertainment, and school. In later iterations of the pop cycle, we see discipline or career, church and street or community. With each of these paradigms, the pop cycle offers a heuristic for searching our own histories for uncanny connections that may well repeat themselves across the cycle enough for us to make something from them. Also referred to as electronic or conductive logic, Ulmer turns the pop cycle into an entity that helps us become better attuned to our unconscious thought. This new attunement guides the process of discovery. I discovered my intense relationship with music and place while trying to think of my own pop cycle. As I mentioned, I have identified music playing on the radio during the mid and late 70s as my image of wide scope. After wrestling with this for some time, I realized that my own wide image is not static. I cannot identify one image, which is uncanny in itself since it adds a dynamic sense to the pop cycle. My emblem is in motion. It is a video that consists of me listening to the music on the radio while driving in the cars and school buses of my childhood.
These musicians connect him to a time and a place. You know how you hear a song and it places you back in that moment when you fell in love with it, as if no time had passed.
Dad grew up on the road. You never really know what's gonna happen when you arrive, so you just experience the ride.
That's what that means?
To arrive at the discovery of my wide image as video, I took the following steps. I first put my given name, Sarah Hazel Johnson, into the Internet Anagram server, and one of the results was Raja Shah Zen Solin. This combination struck me in a few ways. First, I noticed the cross-cultural connection to royalty, Raja and Shah, plus my name Sarah, which means princess in Hebrew. I started pursuing this line but didn't get very far. So I went to Solin, and this is where the minefield of connections exploded. I found out that the ancient Greek tourist also resonated for Ulmer. Solin served as a metaphor for Ulmer's vision for his virtual consultancy for electricity, the famous Emer Agency. I also vividly remembered that my first major in college in 1989 was hospitality and tourism, since I was determined to become a tourist myself then. The theme of the tourist continued as I connected the road trips of my childhood to my most resonant learning experiences. I discovered that fleeing our small town in Minnesota for both vacations and excursions to the Twin Cities shaped the way I not only envisioned the physical landscape around me, but also molded the mental imagery associated with my own developing literacy. I literally learned to read on the road, but not with my nose in a book. Instead, I constantly gazed out the window reading signs, bumper stickers, and the words painted on cars and trucks. These early memories of literacy always had a soundtrack, as the formative experiences occurred in the car with the radio on. Cars, roads, maps, and music continued to repeat for me, and the theme of the move permeated my own pop cycle. In contrast to others' emblems that constitute one image, such as Byron Hawk's image of a hawk simultaneously flying upward and flowing downward, as he articulated in his By story, my emblem is on the move. It is a video of a girl sitting with others in a moving vehicle, looking out the window and listening to the radio. An image of this scene would not be adequate, as it could neither support the movement of the car and passing landscape, nor capture the music from the radio. It could not articulate the relationship between music and memory. For me, radio is associated with 1970s Minnesota. Radio there and then was about dwelling, living, sitting, looking out windows, watching the passing snowdrifts and farmlands, thinking, watching the rows of corn blur by, even connecting, squishing in the back seat of my friend's mom's Pacer, no seatbelts on, coming home from a basketball game singing Real Love by the Doobie Brothers. For me, the place is not only connected to the memory, but it also instigates invention by calling up specific moods and feelings that would not otherwise be accessed. Thus, the pop cycle is on the move.
It's intermission time.